overall, the past 2 days, I've announced a series of initiatives that are going to make sure we hit the target of including today 2 new rules to reduce methane losses from new and existing oil and gas operations and from natural gas pipelines. Thanks to the effort of our joint effort with the EU, we've grown global methane pledge. Remember, I raised it when I spoke to the United Nations from 9 countries signing on to that pledge in September at the United Nations. More than 100 countries have signed on. It's about half the world's methane emissions, 70% of the world's global GDP. We made commitments to promote climate-smart agriculture, spur innovation, catalyze private finance for a clean economy, and to drive high-standard, clean, climate-resilient infrastructure through the Build Back Better initiative. We had a great meeting today where we sat and talked about the whole focus of my Build Back Better initiative, which is adopted by the G7, was that everything should be focused on, as we help with the infrastructure of the rest of the world, which needs it badly, focused on climate. The example is if you build an oil well, if you build a gas or oil refinery, you're going to have that for the next 30 years. Well, why not invest now if we're going to provide for the help for nations in solar capacity or wind capacity? So the point is, although we also brought through the new President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience. We called it, I'm getting tired of acronyms, I have to admit to you, but it's called a PREPARE. We're going to support climate adaptation efforts in more than 500 million people worldwide. We also released our overall long-term strategy that outlines how we'll get to net zero emissions by 2050. You know, we know that this must be a whole-of-society effort. I'd also want to thank the representatives from the private sector and from labor and philanthropies, civil societies who are dedicating themselves to the climate action efforts we're all making here. That leadership, together with action by state and local and tribal governments, has been essential in the United States. That's why, despite the previous administration's pulling us out of the Paris Agreement and refusing even to acknowledge there was a climate crisis, we still brought down emissions during that period. I also want to acknowledge the passion and power of the young people and the activists who are doing such vital work to remind us of our moral obligation to future generations. But look, as I said yesterday, it's not just a moral imperative, it's an economic imperative as well. Investing in our clean energy future is an enormous opportunity for every country to create good-paying jobs and spur a broad-based economic recovery. As I've said, you've heard me say before, and my colleagues as well, when I think of climate crisis, I think of jobs. And that's what the Build Back Better framework will do for the American people. It's going to bring historic investment in clean energy addressing the climate crisis. It's going to cut greenhouse gas emissions by well over a gigaton by 2030. It's going to save consumers money in their energy bills and with tax credits for things like installing solar panels and weatherization of their homes. It's also going to provide manufacturing credits to make sure the United States is competing in energy markets of the future like solar panels and wind turbines. It's also going to accelerate electric vehicles and electric school buses and build a nationwide network of 500,000 charging stations to power them. It's about jobs. It's about competitiveness versus complacency. It's about making the world safer, cleaner, healthier, a place for our children and children all around the world to look to the future in a way that they can't now.